It's John Lund Unleashed. Shout out to Lund loyalists watching on YouTube, those watching on X, Instagram, Facebook, and JohnLundUnleashed.com and the Lund Lunatics, listening to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe and like John Lund Unleashed on YouTube and keep those alerts on so you don't miss anything. Now here's Johnny.
What's happening? Now, this is a bit of a change. 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 in the East, as we get you everything you need to know about 49ers camp. There's Richard Sherman. Jennings injury, a contract cover-up? Richard Sherman was actually at practice today. Got a ton to get you caught up on with the 49ers today. There is the cover of the show. If you're new around here, there you go. We are a nighttime program now, and we've been sending out stuff all day long, and then we'll jump in at night and do stuff, so hopefully it doesn't screw you up too bad, but welcome in. 7 p.m. Pacific time. I was going to say specific time because we're actually on time today. Episode 211, we'll get out to the chalkboard and say hello to everybody. An absolute ton to get to. I got great audio and a video for you from over the weekend when the 3 rookie defensive lineman came in, which was cool. Update on injuries, of course. As I said, Richard Sherman kind of is speculating a little bit as a player. Who knows? I don't think he's right, but maybe. We shall see, but Kyle Shanahan denied it. Kicking competition seems to be over, but Kyle Shanahan said, maybe not so much. And everything else you need to know from camp. So episode 211, camp review. Jennings injury, a cover-up, ? Moody wins the job, another ? Roster moves, a lot of those today. How about 10 of them? It has to do with the Broncos coming into town. So I'll tell you what that's all about with Denver coming into town, why they did all these moves. Rookie D lineman at the mic, as I told you, that's going to be a lot of fun. Rookie D lineman at the mic, which is very, very cool. I'm going to enjoy that. And talking to you about that today is a bunch of guys going to the mic. That was actually on Saturday, or Sunday, but I had so much fun. I got to give it to you. And you're going to love CJ West if you didn't see this kind of stuff. Johnny Holland speaks. Winner's job to lose. I'll explain. Ricky Pearsall is stacking. If you don't know what that term is, I'll tell you what it is. Demo and Jordan James are back out. Juice and Garendo, what you got to worry about and what you don't. From the injury report, 𝐬𝐻𝐫𝐷𝐿 still out, Green still out, Jauan still out. But you knew those things. So again, good evening. Welcome in. It is John Lund Unleashed. Before we go out and say good morning to say good evening to everybody. And by the way, the people that I'm going to say good evening to in just a moment in the chat room at John Lund Unleashed on YouTube, all you got to do is go there and you can hang out with us on YouTube. And we all hang out. We have a great community. It is awesome. It's a great time by everybody. So if you're watching on one of the other platforms, could be Instagram, could be X, LinkedIn, Facebook, any of those kind of places, or the Bay Area Sports Collective, any of those places that you're watching, come over to John Lund Unleashed on YouTube and hang out in the chat room, chat around the 49ers or whatever it is that you guys want to chat about. Absolutely. So come over if you're watching on one of those platforms. All I ask is that you are subscribed, please. Get those alerts on because, like I said, we've kind of changed up the format a little bit. We do the show at night now, and then we send out stuff all through the day. So we send about 4 or 5 things out today. So, and those things could be on any topic whatsoever. I mean, there was some stuff that happened with Kuminga and some Giants stuff, but we're mostly focusing on 49ers at night. So as the season gets going. So that's what we got going on. If you got any questions, comments, or thoughts, always hit me up right underneath the show right here. I'm always on X at John Lund Radio, so you can hit me there as well. And again, just make sure you're subscribed on John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Hit us with those likes. And if you have those alerts on, you're going to get stuff all through the day. And then you'll know when we come on at night, which I'm going to generally try to make this thing 7 o'clock Pacific time. And again, if you've got questions, comments, or thoughts, and like, Lund, I can't make that, then we can change things up. We'll see how people do it. But anyway, that's what's going on. It is very nice to see everybody today. John Joseph, it is great to see you, my friend. Good afternoon, good evening. I got to get used to good evening with everybody. Enrique, it is great to see you. Pine Needle, hello. Daniel from the 916 is here. Pine, I'll get to that. Absolutely. Hi, kids, says Chef A. Who else do we have? If you are new, by the way, say hello to everybody and make your presence known. And again, you can just hang out in the room if you want, but it is always a lot more fun when you're hanging with everybody. John Harder is here. As you can see in there, Francis is here today. all sorts of people in the chat room. Questions, comments, thoughts about camp, by the way, hit me up and I will answer all the questions. And again, if you're watching later, hit me up underneath the show with the comments, questions, or thoughts, or you can always do a super, which will 100% get your comments on the show. So that's it. We're all set up. There is my good friend Fuji Simeon 13. Tough Giants lost bottom of the pint. Yeah, we didn't do one last week. I am in for a bottom of the pint on Friday. What are we looking at? Monday? Yeah, I'm always for it. And like I said, since I'm doing the night shows now, I'm definitely going to be doing that kind of stuff. So even like more stuff during games and things like that we'll do. So yeah, absolutely want to do that on Friday. So Fuji, thank you so much for that question. But yeah, so again, if you want to get your super on the screen, make sure that you hit me up and put in a super, and that would be tremendous. And you're supporting the show at the same time. All right, let's get going. We got a ton to get to today. Camp review. The two things that I think pop out first and foremost, before we get to the players and some videos and so forth, and who spoke at the podium and what's going on. First thing that happened this morning was boatload of roster moves. Let me get those back up there. So you're asking yourself, whoa, what's going on here? Well, what's going on is they're going to need enough camp bodies to scrimmage just for one day, by the way. And Kyle talked about that today, and I'll get into it in just a second. But I already like Big Brick 84, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Well, what happened is that they've got 13 guys at a camp right now, the 49ers. 13 guys at a camp. And so they've got a scrimmage against the Broncos. And one thing that Kyle Shanahan brought up today is they're not doing a second day. And he brought up a hell of a point, which is first day, a team gets the better of a team. And then the second day, after the coach bitches and moans at the players, then that team will tend to get into fights, and it kind of just disintegrates into nothing good. And so Kyle Shanahan and Sean Payton decided on Thursday when they get together for the joint practices that they're just going to do one day. And then they obviously play on Saturday night. So the way it's going to work, the Niners have a practice tomorrow. Then they have an off day. And then Thursday they have a joint practice with the Broncos, which is going to tell us a lot. You know, you're looking at a guy like CJ West. He's kicking ass the entire camp, but can he do it against Denver? When there's different schemes, you know, Brock has looked great. Okay, Denver's going to throw a different scheme at him. How's Brock going to look? How are the receivers going to look? Everybody can look pretty good. They know the scheme. The Niners know the defense knows the offense knows the defense. Players know players. They know their intricate moves, all those kind of things. But the thing is that you get Denver in here, it's going to be different. And I told you the story about Trey Lance a few years ago when he was a rookie. There was whispers around camp, believe it or not, that Trey was going to beat out Jimmy. It was like, this dude, he's good. And then they went down to the Chargers, as I've told you, and I mean, he just got splattered. Didn't know where to go with the ball, was nervous. It was a different scheme. He didn't know that scheme, and he didn't know where guys were going to be. And he looked like a deer in headlights. And that point forward, it was like, we don't know about this guy. So those are the kind of things that can happen. We can get all excited about certain players and everything. I'm excited to see Ricky Pearsall. You know, if I'm Kyle Shanahan and they can script this whole thing, I want to see Ricky Pearsall versus Patrick Surtain every single play. I want Ricky, because the Niners don't have a corner like that. You can tell me about Demo Lenore all day long. He ain't Patrick Surtain. And I want a guy like that I want my best against their best. You know, I want Sean Payton, my guy CJ West has been playing great. Let me see him against your top line. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be really cool, and a lot of good stuff is going to come out of that. So make sure you hit me up all week, but Thursday specifically, because we're going to really be looking at some of the things that are going to be happening on Thursday for that. So that being as the background, Bradley and Nye, who was a guy with Robert Saleh with the Jets, people are like, oh, what about him? A lot of these guys are probably camp bodies. Bruce Hector, an offensive lineman. Jalen Mahoney's a guy that they're bringing back. Fabian Moreau has been in the league 8 years with 5 teams. Isaiah Prince is a journeyman offensive lineman. Those are the guys they're bringing in because they're thin at some of those positions. And then some of these guys could come back. Trey Avery hasn't really made a mark in camp. Isaiah Nayer, everyone's like, oh, but he made that really good deep catch on the second day of camp. And it's like, yeah, he did. But he hasn't really done much since, but I wouldn't be shocked if they brought him back. Larry Krueger is in mourning because Tanner Mordecai was waived today. They like Carter Bradley. Kyle Shanahan said it again today at the press conference that they really like Carter Bradley, the son of Gus Bradley, the assistant defensive coordinator, and been in the league for a long time. Carter Bradley, if you remember, was with the Raiders. So They want to work with him. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Tanner Mordecai came back. Mason Pline, wouldn't be surprised if he came back. And the biggest story today was Greg Joseph, which we'll get into, who was actually out kicking Jake Moody. But look, Jake Moody's a third-round pick. And Greg Joseph would have had to knock out the champ. He didn't. I'll play something for you from Kyle Shanahan. For all intents and purposes, he won the job. I know what Kyle said because he's trying to keep the pressure on Jake Moody. Jake Moody won the job. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. So we'll get into that. But the reason why they had to let some guys go and bring some guys in is they're getting thin at some positions, especially if you look at most of the guys, like Anai's a defensive lineman, Hector's a defensive lineman, Prince offensive lineman. Like the guys that are going to be mixing it up the most. He just got some the guys to fortify for the joint practices because they have 13 guys out of camp. Speaking of 13 guys out of camp, there's their injuries. So I sent that out earlier today at John Lund Radio on X. Out a while, Kevin Givens with the pec. Couple of weeks, Garendo with a shoulder, and Sam O with the groin. Jennings, the same story with the calf. I'll get into that in just a second. Richard Sherman kind of went, well, maybe not. But then Richard Sherman was at practice today, and I'm sure Kyle went up to him and went, hey, dude, thanks. Appreciate that. Because then Kyle was asked about it. Yetur Gross-Matos Raiders week. So that's the week of August 16th. That's also the time when they say that Renardo Green could come back. 𝐬𝐝_𝐾𝐭 could come back. Gross-Matos could come back. So Raiders week. And remember, they've got a practice in Vegas against the Raiders before that game on August 16th. That becomes a really big week because Green's a starting corner. Cowing's a guy that could run some of the jet sweeps and could return punts and kicks if he could get back in time to win those jobs. So, yeah, that's and they want him to build on what he did in the OTAs. And so it's not great that he's out, but they're expected to have a few guys back. And then back today, Demo Lenore, although he wasn't back in his normal capacity, they've got him coming back slow, but I think he'll be fine. And then Jordan James, they mentioned knee, and I was like, oh, no. And then they brought in Amir Abdul, and I thought to myself, is James going to go on the shelf? Or are they going to redshirt him? What are they going to do? But he had looked so good in camp, darting through holes. He made a couple of nice catches downfield in 11-on-11s. I really liked the way the rookie from Oregon has played. So I was going to be down if he had a knee injury and wasn't going to be able to play this year. But I was like, oh. But they just brought in, I think, Abdullah for depth as well. I think their three running backs are pretty well set. And again, Garendo's got a shoulder, so who knows? But McCaffrey, Garendo, James, if they're healthy, that brought in Abdullah as a fourth back for a little bit of camp bodiness, but maybe he could make the team. But they're going to keep three backs, and I think those are the three guys that they're going to keep unless they think they can put Jordan James on the practice squad, and I don't think he's going to make it. So there's your latest on injuries. That is always a thing with the Niners. And again, 13 dudes missing from camp right now, right before those Broncos come into town on Thursday for those joint practices. So that's what's going on in camp review. Injuries, signings, guys cut. A few of those guys could probably come back. All right, big stories today in camp to get you caught up on everything. And again, questions, comments, thoughts, hit me up in the chat room on John Lund Unleashed. Just hit me up right there, and I'll answer all of your questions. If you're watching the show later, just put it right underneath or at John Lund Radio on X. So this is kind of interesting. Richard Sherman, I saw this morning, and I thought to myself, I don't think I'm buying it. We've talked about the injury to Jauan Jennings. You know how thin they are at wide receiver. I don't need to go over it again. Do I? Brandon Ayuk is out. Ricky Pearsall is coming back, although let's put a pin in Pearsall because we're going to talk about him as good as he has been in camp the last couple of days. That's called stacking, which I have him on the chalkboard if you're new around here. By the way, do you like the new chalkboard? I'm going to talk about Pearsall in just a second. Cowing's out. You know the whole story as far as the wide receivers are concerned, but it starts with Jauan Jennings because he was going to be the de facto number one wide receiver. He was not holding out, holding in. We all ran down there on the first the first day of camp. We're going to see 15. We're going to see 15. We're going to see 15. He's there. And so we didn't really give it a second thought. But Richard Sherman brought something up today on his podcast that was, are we sure he's got a calf injury, or is this a front because he's not happy with his contract and they haven't gotten something done? Well, Sherman talked about it, and then stay for the end of this video. Stay for the end of the show, but stay for the end of the video because I spliced in Kyle Shanahan's response. So Sherman this morning on his podcast talking about Jennings, and then Kyle Shanahan, when asked about Jennings, whether that's a real injury, the calf, Kyle Shanahan responded to that at a press conference this afternoon.
outside looking in, if you're just looking at it objectively, knowing what you know, you say, okay, Jauan Jennings had this injury, and calf injuries are nagging and they take a while, and you don't want them to come back because once they come back, you got to sit 3-4 weeks anyway. So I understand the patience and hey, we're gonna take our time. We're gonna make sure we get it right. But from the outside looking in, when you make those demands, it could look like you're holding in. And so I'm glad Kyle Shanahan got ahead of it and said, hey, no, this is an injury. We understand. We're all on the same page here, and I respect that. That's how you put fires out. I think they're going to have to do something. I think they're going to have to appease him. And I think once they do, there might be a chance that he's back in practice that day. I don't know. It kind of seems that way, though.
Anything new on Jauan Jennings?
Same thing with his calf.
It's definitely health-related, not business-related.
You can ask him that, but he tells me it's his calf, and the calf shows, so it's got to be delicate with those calves.
Okay, so that's an interesting answer. And I'm, by nature, because I've been in this business for 30 years, and you start, your reporter instincts kind of pop in, and you think to yourself, okay, I understand, and I know Kyle. I've known him since he came here. So I kind of know when he's telling the truth or when he might be hedging a little bit. But Richard Sherman is talking from a player perspective that, oh, my calf hurts. But, gee, that contract could sure make it look better. So it's not like Richard Sherman doesn't have experience as a player in terms of contract negotiation. Remember, when he was a 49er, he did his own contracts. So here's a guy that's kind of done that. He's a smart guy, went to Stanford after all. Is saying, wait a minute, maybe Jauan Jennings' calf kind of hurts, but if he got a new contract, all of a sudden it would miraculously be not hurting anymore. Now, look, I think that Jauan Jennings has a legit calf because he had a legit calf in OTAs. And so I'm genuinely concerned about Jauan Jennings. Now he's here and you see him and he'll duck into like a weight room every now and then. He's not on the field. He's not walking around. He's not like Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is seen and walking around. Other guys who are injured, and this is where it kind of gives a little bit of credence to what Sherman is saying. Other guys who are injured, a lot of times they're walking around. I've seen Yetur Gross-Matos when Demo was gone. I saw Demo out on the field. A number of guys, there's certain guys working on the side. So if guys are missing practice, you'll see them. Jauan Jennings has been absent. And other than you can see him on a far end of the field, like I said, every once in a while he'll poke into a weight room or something like that. So that kind of lends a little bit of credence because it's a little bit weird. And maybe Jauan Jennings just doesn't want to get near, I don't know, but he doesn't have to get near media. Again, where we are, and I've told you this before, there's two large football fields, and they kind of herd us like cattle all around, this is where I want you to be. This is where, so if, Jauan Jennings didn't want to be near the media, he wouldn't have to be. We don't have access to him, and we can't ask him questions if he's injured. So there's no chance of that happening. But, I'd like to believe that it's a legit injury, although it'd be nice. I guess actually it would be better if it wasn't, and then the contract could get done. But it is a little peculiar in that, I had heard right before the beginning of camp that they were working on something, and I was actually told that it would be a couple of year deal. Because why? He's got one where he left on his deal at $7.5 million, does Jennings. He's upset because he's going, look, I'm the de facto number one wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk's not going to be here for a while. Ricky Pearsall is not ready to step up, although we're going to talk about that in a minute. Who else you got? I'm the guy. Demarcus Robinson's going to miss the first couple of games. He's not really a number one wide receiver type, although among the receivers, I think he's had the best camp of anybody. But it makes, I'm like, okay, yeah. And then you hear Kyle at the end say, you got to ask him. Well, we can't ask him because he's injured and you can't talk to injured players. So he knows we're not going to ask him, but he, that maybe that's just Kyle kind of being funny or smart assy or whatever the case may be. But a lot of times a coach would say, yeah, it's a legit calf injury, but he didn't really. He said you'd have to ask him, but it shows up as a calf. And Richard Sherman even said in his podcast, you got to be careful with that calf injury. You got to stay off it. It's like 2 to 4 weeks, depending. So, a lot of it points to it being a legit injury. But we've seen this before. This would not be unprecedented where a guy's like, I'm banged up. And then he got a new contract and he was out there the next day. And Sherman as a player is kind of hinting towards that. So I'm not going to dismiss it completely. And also the way that Kyle Shanahan answered the question to say, look, you'll have to ask him, but it shows up as a calf. Well, we can't ask him. You know that. So anyway, that's the latest on Jauan Jennings. So I'm a little, let me put it this way. I'm probably 80-20 that it's a real injury, but there's a side of me that says, I would like to see that contract get done. And the other part that's peculiar here is Like I said, I heard early in camp they were talking, and it might be a 2-year deal. 20-something million dollars, $23 million, something in that range. Okay, 2 years, $23, $24 million, looking, $11, $12 million, gets himself a nice little $4+ million bump, gets 2 years out of that thing. Not bad. And still there's not a deal done. And so that is a little bit weird. And I hope that it doesn't rear its ugly head at some point, but he did, pay me or trade me kind of a thing. And then all of a sudden there's nothing done. He's not practicing. We'll see. But I'm just going to keep an eye on it because I'm not completely dismissing it. That's all I'm saying. All right, we'll get to Moody wins the job in a minute, but any thoughts on Jauan Jennings? Let me just look at this whole thing. Yeah, look, with Aiyuk out, and even though Pearsall has been great the last couple of days in camp, I'm not ready to just stamp him anything. So, yeah, he needs to get a deal done, man. JJ's new deal is done after the preseason game. Got to be delicate with this calf. Translate to negotiates and going well. Yeah, maybe. I mean, you could be right, man. You could totally be right. Good to see you, Carlos. Let's see. Get well soon, Papa. The touchdown call isn't going to be the same. Absolutely. I've told people this before. If you didn't know, if you're out of the market, I worked with Papa for about 15 years, and the only thing he's texted me is "I'll be good," quote unquote. "I'll be good." So I'll just keep that. I'll keep that as he'll be good. That's what he texted me, so that's what I'm going with. Keeping the Face says, Jennings better hurry up and sign because Pearsall is coming. That's a perfect transition to that. So we'll get into that right after Moody wins the job. Now, here's what Kyle said about it. So Greg Joseph gets released today. Kyle Shanahan said that he would have liked to have kept Greg Joseph around. They were in basically a dead heat. Greg Joseph, I think, had made one more kick. I think he was 22 at 24. Moody was 21 to 24, and Moody's kicks, some of them were kind of like, yeah. So it's not like he's blown away the competition, but I told you this at the beginning of training camp. He was going to have to knock out the champ. He was just going to have to kick Joseph so much better. I mean, not only making the kicks, but they had to be just like line drives down the middle, and they don't really look like that. So by default, I think, not because Moody's been so great, but just by default, I think that he wins the kicking job, and we'll see. Now, this is the caveat that Kyle Shanahan put on it, but some people are trying to speculate that he didn't necessarily win the job. He won the job. Kyle's just trying to put pressure on him. So here's Kyle today talking about why Greg Joseph got released, and it has Jake Moody won the job 100%.
Play that out longer, but we had 13 guys out of practice today. We got 5 guys on PUP. It's just too many people to have that luxury. It's awesome to have 2 kickers, allow them to battle, but they're not guys who really take reps. We need more people to take reps for us.
What do you consider the competition final then?
I mean, he's not here, but there's never whether you have 1 kicker in the building or 2, which you rarely have 2, kickers always know they're competing with whoever's out there. So I don't see it much different.
It is different because then you got to bring in another guy that you don't know, and the special teams coach is going, well, I don't know that guy, and all that kind of stuff. Could they bring Greg Joseph back? Yeah, but he's not a great kicker. I didn't love that he was the guy competing with him. I'm not a big Greg Joseph fan, and so I didn't think there was much of a competition with Jake Moody. The reason why Kyle said that they let Greg Joseph go today is because they have 13 guys out of camp, and as I showed you to start the show, they had to sign a bunch of guys because they've got a joint practice coming up on Thursday. And look, man, they got 13 guys out of camp. They got to get some bodies in here. So that's why Greg Joseph's not around. I do believe him when he says, I would have liked to have pushed this competition longer. But the reality is they could have let another guy go. But they're like, look, Jake Moody's going to be our kicker. And if Jake Moody had been signed as a free agent, if Jake Moody had been taken in the 7th round, let's use a little logic here. I don't know if he'd be around. I don't know if they can put up with this stuff. I know for a fact that Kyle Shanahan has had it up to here with the misses. And when he had, I don't mean his wife, the misses, I mean the misses on the field goals. And when he had Robbie Gould, it was like, okay, 53 and in, I got this thing. So he knew, man, I get to the 35-yard line, I'm good to go. And he's by and large, he's going to hit this now. He doesn't have the leg of 55 or 58 that Moody can get, but he's a lot more consistent. And the inconsistency is driving Kyle crazy. And the thing that makes me nervous about Moody, and then now you got to go out and get another kicker. I'm not saying that Kyle's lying there because there are a lot of kickers out there, and teams shuffle through kickers in a season, whether they get hurt or whether they are just ineffective and they've had it. But he's a 3rd-round pick, and they're going to try to justify that pick and keep the kid around. And then the other side of it is, yeah, there's other kickers out there. But he's going to have to fall on his face for you to bring in those other kickers because you don't know those other kickers. You know Greg Joseph. I just don't think Greg Joseph's that great. And then the other side of it is, Jake Moody with his leg can kick it out of the end zone. That's a big deal to special teams coaches, Brant Boyer, and to the 49ers. That's a big deal. I know it's not kicking extra points and field goals, but that's a big deal. But my biggest concern about Moody is he's changed his kicking style to it's a two-step now. But the other side of it is it's not even physical, it's mental. And even in the preseason, let's just say this Saturday night against Denver, he loses a kick and you're in the stands. You've had a few beers. You're going to boo the guy. Then what happens to him mentally? And I'm not telling you not to boo the guy. I'm just simply saying that he's going to miss a kick. I've seen him do it in practice. He's kicking well, but he could miss a kick. It's game day. We're talking about practice. We're talking about a game. And so if he misses one in a game, doink, off the upright, what is Jake Moody going to do? How's he going to react? And whether that's in the regular season or in preseason, will all that, mental work he did with the sports psychologist in the offseason, is that going to go away? Because he's got the physical skills. They took him in the third round for a reason. He can kick the ball. He's got distance. He can kick it out of the end zone. There's a reason why he was the first kicker taken. I didn't like it. I don't like taking kickers. I think you can find them all over the place. Look at the Lions. Look at Aubrey, the Cowboys. You can find these guys all over the place. You don't need to use a third-round pick on it. Whatever, they did. And they're trying to justify it. I understand that. I'm just saying don't compound the problem, because if he misses his first kick in the preseason and has his head hanging down, you better have Greg Joseph or even somebody better on speed dial. So has he won the job? For now he has. And Kyle's not wrong when he says that, hey, they're competing all the time, because we can bring in a kicker at any time. There's 25 kickers right now warming up, getting ready to take Jake Moody's job. But it says something big to Jake Moody that Greg Joseph's no longer here. So there you go. So Moody, I'm saying he has won the job. I know that he's on a thin sheet of ice as far as the preseason is concerned, but I don't think they're going to cut him after one missed kick. But I'm worried about his mental state if he misses said kick. So there you go. We already went through the roster moves and why. I'm going to skip down to, because I was going to do defense first, but everybody wants to talk about Pearsall, so I'm going to do that real quick and put a pin in, because you know how much I love the rookie defensive lineman. I'm going to talk about Stout. I'm going to talk about winners. But let me go down to Pearsall real quick here. I'm going to skip down in the chalkboard. So on, I think it was Saturday, Ricky had 5 catches, and people were freaking out, but he looks good. And I told you, let's go back to, Sunday. So a week ago Sunday, maybe 8 or 9 days ago when Ricky started. No, today's Monday. So 8 days. Ricky has been in camp for 8 days. And so I'm walking. It was was it Friday? Yeah, it was the Friday practice. And Ricky was starting to ramp things up. And so we're looking and we're seeing him on a far field. And then we're switching fields to a far field, the median. So they're putting us in the herd and they're moving us around. And it just so happens that Ricky Pearsall had come to a different field and he ran right by me, cut without slowing down whatsoever. Ball was a little bit behind him that the coach had thrown. He turns, body control, one hand, catches the ball. And at that point, right on my phone, I went, Ricky Pearsall is going to be back on Sunday. And, 2 days later was practicing and everything else. So what the 49ers have done is he's been in drills a ton. And then he's kind of had limited work in the 11-on-11s. And that's totally understandable. In the first couple of days of pads, he was, he had about 8 reps per day. And then all of a sudden he's starting a little bit more. And he had 5 catches. And then today had some great one-on-ones with Upton Stout. I'm going to talk about Stout in just a second. But they're having pretty good battles. I was there the day that Stout went over the top and tipped one away from Ricky on an out pattern. Now, I don't know if it's fresher legs for Ricky because he came in a little bit late because of the hamstring injury and they didn't want to push that too much. Whatever the case may be, everybody's raving about Ricky. So I take it with a little bit of grain of salt, but because we do this every day, so this is episode 211 and we're doing, we're recapping camp today and really the last couple of days, guy's been awesome. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. I'm not ready to crown. I'm not saying he's going to be the number 1 receiver, even if Jennings comes back. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is it's not a lack of talent with Ricky Pearsall. He's got 4.4 legit, 4.4 flat speed. He's got great body control. The kid is smart. He picks up the playbook. just everything that you want. He makes it look easy on the field. He glides better than any other receiver. He runs the routes better than any other receiver. Remember, Ayuk's not out there. He cuts. He doesn't slow down his speed. He doesn't give away any routes. I'm not going to call him Cooper Kupp in that way, but you don't know where he's going. He's a really refined, good route runner. And the only thing that Ricky Pearsall needs is health. That's all he needs. And so now he's starting to get confident. Now he's starting to get some reps. And what I have right there on the chalkboard there, Ricky, quote unquote, stacking. And that's a 𝐾𝐨𝐽, the offensive coordinator. That's a 𝐾𝐨𝐽 word. He says day after, okay, somebody flashes. And I told you this last week. Okay, we're the media and we stand there and every day we sit there and we scramble things down because we got to come back to you and we got to give you information, right? But to me, it's about what do they do day after day after day after day, because professional sports is about consistency. You wouldn't be here if you couldn't flash every once in a while. If you're a professional athlete, you wouldn't be here unless you were great at some point. You were awesome in high school. You were great in college. You could flash. But now it's about consistency. And now Ricky's starting to show that consistency. And that's where you start going, okay, all right, maybe there's something there. And like I said, it's just the injuries. Everything else you see about Ricky Pearsall, he's good. And now he's starting to stack those days. It's day after day. It's a few days in a row now where you're going, okay, he's starting to show it. So hopefully he can stay healthy. I don't think he's injury prone or anything like that, but so hopefully he can stay healthy and Ricky Pearsall, because the wide receiver room needs it. But you already knew that. All right, so let's go back up to the top because we wanted to talk about some Pearsall. There's Pearsall there. Let's go back up to rookie D-line at the mic. You're going to love this. You're going to love this. All right, so here's what I'm going to do for you. We have Mykel Williams. We have C.J. West. And we have the big man, Alfred Collins. So I'm going to play Mykel Williams for you first. And there's a couple of things here. Williams and Collins, okay, if I had to rank them in terms of how they want to be at the mic, right? First would be C.J. West. You're going to love this guy. In fact, you're going to go out and you're going to get yourself a C.J. West jersey. I'm 100% convinced that you are. And then I'd say Mykel Williams. And then Alfred Collins really isn't comfortable up there yet. Didn't really want to be there. So here is Mykel Williams, and I've told you in camp, and this is going to be really valuable. So Mykel Williams an edge, but then in the turbo package, which is the Niners pass rushing package, he's going to move to the inside. So he talks about that and his ability to be inside outside. But then then he asked, remember I told you a couple of weeks ago, I was down there and we were sitting there and Trent Williams came into the auditorium. And I think it was off the mic. Trent said, yeah, Mykel Williams asked me if he could use my plane. I was like, what are you talking about? You're going to use my plane. So then somebody asked him as a follow-up question, did you really ask to use Trent Williams' plane? So I got both those in here. So here he is talking about rushing inside, outside. And then somebody follows up with a question of whether he really asked Trent Williams for his plane. Here is first-round pick Mykel Williams.
Inside and out, like you said, that's something that I did in the past at Georgia. And I'm continuously doing it right now. And I don't feel discomfort in it, so we're pretty good.
Any distinct difference inside or out that you have to adjust to be more successful?
I mean, just in football, like things happen faster in the middle than they do on the edge, so that's you got to speed your hands and your feet up. But that's pretty much the really kind of one of the differences. And it's shorter sets, but we get into football talk then. But it just things happen a little quicker.
Yeah. Really ask Trent Williams if you could borrow his plane.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, man. My pops told me a while ago, man, closed mouth don't get fed.
What a great line. He goes, closed mouth don't get fed. By the way, Trent was going down to Cabo. And Trent said, well, I'm already going down to Cabo. But anyway, he didn't ride with him. But Trent Williams did say that he hung out with Mykel Williams a lot, laughed that he asked him to use his plane, but said, yeah, it was cool. And he said they had a long conversation. But let me go back to the football side of it, which he started going, wait a minute. He's kind of stopped himself. He goes, then we start talking football. And they don't want to talk football with us because then, you're giving away secrets. But no, he's going to be really valuable to have a lineman. And he hit it right on the head. He doesn't have a go-to or a huge array of moves on the outside. He's just such a big athlete. And again, I've said this before. He just reminds me of Aldon Smith. And I saw Aldon. I've told this story before. I saw Aldon on his first day of training camp with the Niners, and in these long vine arms. And Joe Staley was I remember Joe after that practice just going, dude, this guy's going to be a problem. And remember, Alden was the 7th overall pick. He was 20 years old. Nobody really knew him out of Missouri. It was like, who is this guy? And obviously, if he could have kept his head on straight, 43 sacks in his first 42 games, he would have been an all-time great, I think. So Mikel Williams, I'm looking at him. I'm just watching him on the field when I'm out there, and I'm just going, long arms, big build, strong dude. Now, I would say this. Alden had the array of moves already. I think that Mikel Williams right now is probably he's a good edge setter on the outside, and he's a better pass rusher from the inside than he is the outside. So we'll see how that goes. But I think that, if he can set the edge and then he can come inside in the turbo package, the pass rushing package, and I've told you this about Bryce Huff a million times already, his speed is kind of jarring, to be honest with you. And I'm excited to see him go against the Broncos on Thursday. But I think when they bring that package in, it's going to be really interesting to see, because I think Williams is definitely going to start. I don't know that Collins is going to have enough time to make up ground on the inside to start, but maybe he is. Probably going to be Jordan Elliott. I don't know that it's going to be C.J. West. As great as C.J. West has been, I'm not sure that it's going to be West. I do think that West is going to be in that turbo pass rushing package right from the get-go, but we'll see. He has been dominant, there's no doubt, as far as the pass rushing is concerned. And again, another guy that I'm excited to see against the Broncos. So there's first-round pick Mikel Williams. Here is second-round pick Alfred Collins. And this is really interesting. Asked about how the guys, the young rookies, and Sebastian Valdez, by the way, who's a strong dude, who's a free agent, who he might make this team, or if not, he's definitely going to be if they can get him back on the practice squad. He wears number 55. And so he'll flash against the Broncos this weekend. He'll be a second-half guy, Valdez, but he can play. And they might have found something in this guy. But here's Alfred Collins, a second-round pick out of Texas, talking about how he and Valdez and West, they all hang out together as rookies on the D-line.
Each other. We're all just talking to each other. And, we have any confusion, the way he remembers it, the way CJ or Mikel or Seabass might remember it, might help me remember it, you know what I'm saying? So we always just, collabing and stuff like that. So I feel like that really helps.
Is that fun to kind of be part of something like that with young guys who are expected to?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's a challenge, and I love it. We all love a challenge. Even with the older guys, you know what I'm saying? They really help us too. So, yeah.
There's Alfred Collins. He didn't really love being up there. He is a massive human being. But as I told you, and I observed this right away, even before they got in pads, because I've told you this many times. They're on the far end of one of the fields that we can get. This is as close as we can get to anybody, are the defensive linemen. And I just love watching them play. And then once they get on the pads, especially when they go one-on-one against offensive linemen, now we're cooking with gas. And I'm excited. That's all I'm going to do Thursday when I watch them against Denver, is just be like, I got to watch this. That's all I'm going to watch is those guys, because I'm infatuated with it. Because, look, the reason I am is because this could determine the success or failure of the 49ers season. If their defensive line, and let's go back to 2019. Now, these guys aren't going to be Bosa, Armstead, Buckner, D. Ford. Those are veteran guys outside of Bosa, who's just great from day one. But the other three guys, veteran guys, knew how to play this game. They're not going to be that. But they're going to progress through the season. They're going to make their mistakes. You're going to be really impressed with C.J. West here in a minute. I'm going to play two cuts from C.J. West in just a second. But it's just going to take some time. Alfred Collins stands up and exposes his chest and gets is going to get forklifted by guards. He reminds me a lot, and I'm not saying that this is going to be the 49ers career he's going to have, but it looks like Jauan Jennings, who is that big, just massive man. Kinlaw was even bigger, and you saw, and he got forklift because he would just stand up, and it's hard when you're 6'5", and Collins almost 6'6". CJ West is 6'1". He comes off the ball low anyway. It's just really hard to do. And look, Collins is a big man. He's very strong. Dominic Pooney went to the podium today and was like, Alfred Collins is a load. So I don't know that Alfred Collins is going to be that guy that's going to, even get 5, 6, 7 sacks in the middle. I think that CJ West can do that. But Alfred Collins' job is going to be, you stuff the run, you keep guys off of our linebackers who are fast and are going to move to the ball, and you'll have done your job. If you get a couple of sacks just because a quarterback moves up in the pocket and you happen to grab him because you're massive, that's fine. You just stop the run because they've had issues. They've had issues against the run. So I'm okay with it. If Collins gets a couple sacks, 1 sack, but just can, be a monster in there and just not be moved, then I'm fine with it. All right, here's where it gets fun. So CJ West is awesome. So CJ talks more about the rookies, but just his presence and how comfortable he is and how much fun and how detailed he gets. You're going to like this guy. You're going to be getting yourself a 99 West jersey. Check it out.
Year. Like when you come in, you need to be ready to play. And I mean, I was always told pressure is never given, it's earned. So, you know, we feel like we earn that pressure, and we're going to do everything we can to continue to just, break those barriers that we need to do through our practice. So, when it comes to pressure, we're just going to continue to work and get 1% better every day, and that's all that really matters. And then, the outcome will be the outcome, but it depends on how we work.
I'm sure.
Dude has such a good personality. He had a great press conference. And like I said, Mykel Williams, it's not that he was bad. It's just these guys, it takes a minute for them to get comfortable. You're in an auditorium and there's these lights shining on you and there's all these media guys sitting in like theater seating and we're just firing questions at you and you're a young guy going, chill. You could just tell Collins, even though, Collins went to Texas, Mykel Williams went to, Georgia. I mean, they're just not, they weren't the center of attention, where they went. And so it's, it's not like they haven't been interviewed before, but it was kind of like, okay. And I'm sure they have a PR staff that says, make sure you're not telling them this, that, or the other. But CJ West is just very comfortable behind the mic. So here's a little more CJ West. He says it's going to come down to the details.
Like I said before, as a rookie, those are the things you have to really hone in on because the game might not come very quick for you. But if you get those details and like Coach Chris says, stay on your attack line, learn your steps, shoot your hands, you'll be able to make some plays and you'll be able to, figure everything else out from there. But if you just not focusing and not getting off the ball, the game just speeds up way too quick for you, and you won't be able to, help yourself or protect yourself when it comes down to it. So,
I'm telling you, man, he's going to be fun. I mean, he's just going to be fun. The more and more he gets comfortable, and he already seems comfortable to me in front of a microphone, but you can just tell. Well, he was up there maybe 10 minutes. Just the intricacies of where he understands it. Chris 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭, this yelling, screaming. These guys are down in their stance, all right? And Chris 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭's got a backwards hat on, and he is this close to their ear. Let's go! He's just freaking out on these guys. And if you don't do it right, it's go again, go again, go again. He'll have them do it 3-4 times. And these guys are all together. Like I said, it's Collins out there. It's Mykel Williams out there. And remember, Mykel Williams is playing inside and outside. So that's a big chore. Collins is coming off an injury in OTA, so he's a little bit behind the things. But, and everybody's trying to, and it's interesting, everybody's kind of trying to, on the coaching staff, not downplay CJ West, but they don't want, don't tell the kid he's so great. You know what I mean? Don't tell the kid, even though he's crushing people, don't tell the kid he's so great. And, I don't know what he's going to do against the run. That's what's going to be exciting for Thursday against the Broncos. Get him in there. Let's see if he can be stout against the run too. Because I know this, CJ West can push the pocket. CJ West, I think, is going to be on that turbo pass rushing line with Mykel Williams inside next to him. And Bryce Huff on one end and Bosa on the other. They're screaming from the outside. Those two guys inside are pushing the pocket. CJ West can all of a sudden, what does he do? He pushes that pocket. The quarterback is like, uh-oh, where do I go? Because Huff is fast as hell and Bosa's going to track you down. That's why they got these dudes. So, Collins, you stop the run. West comes in the pass rushing down. He penetrates the pocket. That forces the quarterback to go outside. You're dead. Huff is fast. Bosa is an animal. You know that. So I love the defensive lineman, man. But CJ West, you're going to like this dude, man. You are really going to like this dude. He's cool. He's fun to listen to. He understands the game. He gets it. I cut off a little of that first answer he said. He said, there's no redshirt year, man. We got to come in and we got to be great. And you can tell that's just being regurgitated. Like they're telling those defensive linemen, look, man, there might be 3 of you dudes starting. There's certainly going to be 3 of you guys out there at one time at some point in rotations with Collins, West, and Mykel Williams. And I wouldn't be surprised if Valdez made the team. I mean, he is a big, strong dude. I think Pooney said they called him, can't remember what it was, like the Hulk or something like that. So, I mean, they've got some guys. Not to say that Evan Anderson isn't going to play well or, any of these kind of guys. But these young guys, that's who the eye is on. And like I said, they are the key to everything. Think about it. Run defense, they got to stop the run. They got to keep the big guards and centers from shooting out to the second level and getting to the linebackers. And outside of Fred Warner, they're not very big. D. Winters isn't big. He's fast. He gets to the ball, but he's fast. He needs these guys to keep big guards off him. And then same thing with Nick Martin. Nick Martin's not big. I've told you that. You stand next to him, like he's built, don't get me wrong, but he's like 5'11". He might be 220. Maybe he gained a few pounds since then, 225. That's a small linebacker, but he's fast. He will get to the ball. But you get a guard shooting out to the second level to Nick Martin, good night. And then that means a long run. So these guys are massive. And then in the pass game, you know how this works. You can get a pass rush to the quarterback. That cuts down the length that the DB's got to cover. So the D-line is everything defensively. Has to do with the run, has to do with the pass, and it's these big guys inside. Can you keep those guards and centers off the linebackers? Can you penetrate the pocket so that Bosa and Huff can get to the quarterback? I mean, they're everything, these guys. These young guys that I just played the clips from, I think, the quarterback's obvious. I mean, Brock's going to dictate it, the health of McCaffrey. There are other things. But defensively, those three guys that you just heard of are going to dictate the failure and success of the Niners because they will score points. They'll get wide receivers back at some point. I know we're all concerned about the wide receivers, and that's why we're so happy about Ricky Pearsall, as I put down there, stacking days. But it's going to come down to the defense. And the offense early in the season, they might have to score 30, 34 points for the Niners to win games while this defense is getting caught up. But these young guys, as CJ West just said, they've got to get out of the gate fast, man. They got to get out of the gate fast. So there's that. That's the whole defensive side of things, or the defensive line, I should say. So rookie D-line at the mic is what we just played. Let me. This was from this weekend. Let me put this up there. Stout. I've told you about Stout the whole friggin' time. So this isn't any kind of surprise. But over the last 10 days, and I didn't see Stout a lot in OTAs, and did I? I was whatever. When they took him in the third round, 5'8", 185 out of Western Kentucky University, the Hilltoppers. When I saw that, I was like, really? This guy? He's not big enough. I want him to take a big corner, kick Demo Lenore inside. I think he's a great slot corner. Get a big corner for the outside, but this is what they did. The draft doesn't always fall to you that way. So they pick up this kid who's 5'8", 185, and I'm like, okay, Upton Stout. All right, let's see. They say he's feisty. They say this and that. Beginning of camp, first day. He's everywhere, right? They're just in shorts, but he's everywhere. And I go, he looks like K'Wan Williams to me. The former Niner, wore 24, the blitz. Remember the pick he had against Dallas in the playoff game in Dallas? Turned that whole game around. K'Wan Williams was feisty, man. He'd blitz from the slot. He'd come up and hit. He was 5'9", 185, man. He wasn't a big dude. Didn't come from a big school. None of that kind of stuff. That K'Wan Williams. First minute I see this guy, I'm like, that's K'Wan Williams. Then they get the pads on, and he's even better. He's knocking away balls. Like today, again, like I said, Ricky Pearsall versus Upton Stout was big. And I've told you this before. In this division, Cooper Kupp's going to be in the slot. They'll move just for Upton Stout, who's 5'8". They'll put Marvin Harrison Jr., the Cardinals. Seattle will put Smith and Jigba in there too. The Rams will put Puka in there to challenge him physically. He's going to have a hell of a time. It's the toughest position, I think, in the secondary. I mean, there's no doubt. Outside corners, at least they got a little bit of help. They got a sideline. You're in the slot, they can go anywhere. They can go inside, outside, deep, short, quick, and it's usually that kind of thing. They'll put big guys in there, small guys in there, whatever the case may be. It's not just a quick guys, it's not just a 5'8", 190-pound guy in there anymore. They'll put size in there if you're 5'8", like Upton Stout is. So he's going to see that all year. But this was kind of cool. Like, this is from Nick Wagner. This was on Sunday. Daniel Bullocks, the DB coach, said, begin watching the tapes of K'Wan Williams. Stout liked watching Williams so much, he reached out to him during OTAs. The pair struck up a relationship, and Williams sent Stout some cut-ups to watch him watching his downtime. Stout's been in touch with Williams with questions ever since. So you wonder how a kid can come in as a rookie at that size from a small college and be great right out of the gate, like he's been, Upton Stout. There is no competition at nickel, by the way. Unless he gets hurt or falls on his face the rest of camp, that is a done deal. Upton Stout's the starting nickel. That's a done deal. So it's going to be, hopefully Renardo Green comes back Raiders week. Second-year corner out of Florida State. He's going to be one starter. Demo's going to be fine. He's coming off a little bit of a hip, but he was back, a little bit limited, but he's back. Upton Stout's going to be the slot. He's going to get tested a lot. Safeties we can get into a little bit later, but that's what it looks like right now. It's not even close. But the fact that he said, you know what, I'm kind of a K'Wan Williams type, and then he reaches out and says, strikes up a friendship. The guy gives him cutouts. The guy's a veteran. This is what you should be doing, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's how a kid gets good right out of the gate. He's just like, I'm going to talk to K'Wan Williams. This guy's good. I'm not going to be all this meek. I'm a rookie. Dude, you got to reach out. That's the guy that you want to be. You want Jauan Williams. That's who you want to be. Blitzing from the corner, coming or from the slot, making plays in the run game, all that kind of stuff. You can get by a guard. Like the guard's coming out to smash you. You're faster than that dude. Get in the backfield. That's the kind of guy, that's the kind of plays this kid's been making. He's been great in coverage. He'll come up. There's nothing to not be impressed about. He and CJ West have easily been the best rookies in camp, most consistent rookies in camp. So anyway, there's the STOUT K1 thing that I put you right there. And then this is Johnny Holland, the linebackers coach, talking about D Winters. He said, we're excited that he's in there. We hope he can take that position. This is on Sunday. And I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the season if D played 90% of the snaps. He's going to be a really, really good player. So that's encouraging. That's Johnny Holland, the linebacker coach. Now, let's give that a little bit of a caveat here. He knows that D Winters is going to read that. He's trying to instill confidence. But early in camp, he did have an interception, I think on the second day of camp, might have been the first day. That would have been a pick six. He had another interception, but he's constantly around the ball. Now, even in pads, they're not tackling to the ground. And that's the only thing that I have any hesitation with in D Winters, because he's been around the ball. But last year, the issue for D Winters, because he's got so much speed, the issue for D Winters was not getting to the ball. It was breaking down and making the play once he got there. He seemed overly excited. He would miss tackles. He would overrun plays. He was excited. His technique would leave him once he got around the ball. Oh my God, I'm going to make a tackle. Oh my God. And he just missed a lot of plays. I mean, that's the only way to put it. Missed a lot of plays. Mature, you're older. Hey man, Dre Greenlaw, who's coming back this weekend, on Thursday. Dre Greenlaw, there's no Dre Greenlaw around, man. We don't have any other choice, dude. You got to play. Now, I know they took Nick Martin. Nick Martin is in the mix to be the third linebacker, so he's the backup weak side linebacker right now. So generally speaking, that's why Upton Stout's so important. It's going to be Fred Warner, D Winters. That's where Johnny Holland says the 90%. And then it's going to be, Stout in the nickel. That's more the base nowadays in the National Football League. And then you may need a strong side linebacker. That could be Luke Gifford, who's been doing a lot. The kid that came over from Tennessee, he's more of a special teams guy. But then D Winters, could he switch from weak to strong? They've talked about it. We've asked questions of the coaches, and they say, yeah, he can do that. So right now, Martin, the rookie out of Oklahoma State, is working on the weak side because that's what worked better with him. He's not as big, but he can flip over that side. But right now, he's not there. But we're still early enough in camp where Nick Martin, and they've said good things about Nick Martin. It's just he doesn't look like, he's running with the twos on the weak side, but he doesn't look like D Winters. So this is D Winters' job, as Johnny Holland said. So that's what we know about that. So Stout and K1, Winters' job to lose. Pearsall, if you just joined us, we talked about Pearsall stacking days. Had 5 catches on Saturday. Great matchup today with Upton Stout. And he's starting to look good day after day after day, which he didn't have an opportunity to do last year. And if you missed the stuff that I was playing last week with Ricky Pearsall, Ricky essentially said, because of the injuries, because of the shooting, they didn't have a lot of practice time. It was like, basically, I'm rolling out of bed running routes. He did work with Brock Purdy this offseason down in Florida a little bit. Ricky also, from Arizona, just like Brock is. But Brock was busy, man. Brock's in Nashville, Tennessee now. Brock got married. Wife had a kid. Like, he's like, yeah, I'll try to work it out with you. But they had a little bit of work together. So, look, if I looked at the wide receiver room right now, you got to pray that Jauan Jennings is healthy. I think Pearsall is showing that he could be the number 2 receiver with Aiyuk out. And now you're thinking to yourself, who could be in the slot? Could it be 𝐾𝐭 or when Demarcus Robinson comes back? Because when Demarcus Robinson comes back and before Aiyuk comes back, your 3 receivers are going to be Jennings, Robinson, and hopefully Pearsall. And Pearsall can play inside, outside. Jennings can play inside, outside. Not sure about Robinson. I've just seen Robinson on the outside. I haven't seen Robinson at all in the slot. So, but if I had to pick a receiver that's been the most consistent in camp, it's been Robinson. There's no doubt. So there's the latest on Pearsall. Good news on Demo and Jauan Jennings. I mentioned that. They are back and out. Juice is a 2-week. He got his Achilles stepped on. It's not an Achilles injury, so to speak. He just got his foot stepped on. Guerrero is going to be a couple of weeks as well with that shoulder. And like I said, 𝐾𝐭, Green, Jauan. Again, let me pop this up if you just jumped in here. My God. there's the injuries right there. Gibbons is going to be out for a while with a pec. Guerrero and Samo, shoulder and groinal region. Jennings, the same story with the calf. We played that from Sherman. Sherman's like, if he gets a contract done, that calf is going to feel a lot better. Juice day-to-day, like I said, they just picked up 𝐬𝐫𝐫𝐞, the wide receiver with some speed. He's got an ankle. That's not going to help him make the team. Gross Matos, Raiders week. And again, that's a big week now with potentially 𝐜𝐭 coming back that week and Renardo Green coming back that week. Huge week. And then back Demo and Jordan James. So that's, everybody loves talking injuries in camp. 13 guys. That's why they had to pick up so many guys today. So that's what's going on as far as the injuries are concerned. I had one other Kyle to play for you. Was this worth playing? Oh, I already played that. That was the Sherm thing. The kicking thing we already played. We got you caught up on that. All the defensive linemen, we got you caught up on that as well. We played that. Do I have anything else that I need to show you? Or nope, injuries, moves, Winters, Bullocks. Yeah, I think we got you caught up on anything. Questions, comments, thoughts. Give me your thoughts on any questions about Niners camp that I can answer for you. And again, if you're watching the show later, put it underneath here, right here in the questions, comments, and thoughts. You can disagree with me, you can agree with me, whatever. Or if you got any questions, another great place to put that is X, as I always tell you about, at John Lund Radio. I am there a lot. People watching tonight on X, Instagram, Bay Area Sports Collective, LinkedIn, and Facebook. If you come over to the page, John Lund Unleashed, and say good afternoon, good evening, that would be wonderful because I am looking at the chat room right now. AJ Cruz is here, man. It is good to see you. Who else do we have in the room that I have not acknowledged tonight? Let's see. What's up, P? Good to see you, man. They have cap space. Don't you think the secondary gets they'll go sign a corner? Absolutely, positively. What I think they're going to do, there's two things. They've got this board, okay? They're not going to they don't show us it, but they've got depth charts and from around the league, and they're looking at what they're looking at is who's got an excess at a position, right? The Niners are really top heavy. So I'm trying to think where they'd have excess at a position right now. They got a lot of good defensive linemen. They got some good linebackers like Stone Blanton, who wears 50, for example. What a great linebacker named Stone Blanton. I don't think he's going to make the initial roster, but he's going to be a guy who probably be on the practice squad. You know, they got some good linebackers, you know, whatever. So what you do around the league, if you're short somewhere, you start monitoring. This is what John Lynch is doing. That's what his front office is doing. You know, drafts over, free agents, all that stuff's over. But what they're doing is they're looking at teams and they're saying, okay, we're short at safety. And I've said this before, they need an adult in the room at safety. I really believe that. Nothing against, you know, what they've got back there. Jason Pinnock is okay. He's just a fill-in until Malik Mustafa comes back. Jared Brown has looked better in camp. He's coming off an injury last year. Demo's fine on one corner. I told you who the corners are going to be, and in the slot. Those are all set. But they could use another safety who could be an adult in the room on the back end, kind of like a couple of years ago. They did that with Gibson. So they're going to be on the lookout for a safety. There's no doubt about it. They brought in a couple of corners. You know, they brought in these corners that are just camp bodies. They brought in Eli Apple. I think Eli Apple is just a camp body. But that will not preclude them from, you know, seeing a team that might have some extra corners, a veteran corner. They don't need necessarily more young corners. I mean, they've got Darrell Luter Jr. and Jacob Robinson and some guys like that. I mean, Trey Brown has been hurt with Seattle. He's more of a veteran type, so he can work in there. He can play the slot and outside. But I'd be shocked if they didn't bring in a safety that could be, as I call it, an adult in the room. They really need that. They really need that. So that's what I would think as far as that goes. But yeah, they're monitoring. Everybody's monitoring right now to see what's out there. That's why they're bringing in guys too. This is not only for camp. This is for like, hey, if we got a guy injured in the season, let's bring this guy in and take a look. Like Bradley Anae, for example, today, you know, was with Saleh with the Jets, was a 5th-round pick of the Cowboys in 2020. He hasn't established himself all in the NFL, but, you know, Saleh obviously likes him. He was on the practice squad for a couple of years in 22 and 23 with the Jets. They just want to see where he's at, you know, in case they have an injury at edge. Then they had Bradley Anae. You know, he had the playbook. He kind of knew what was going on later in the year. It's like, hey, we had that guy in here. You know, we got an emergency situation here. We got a game on Thursday night. Let's bring the kid in. You know, some kind of depth like that. That's why you bring in lots of these guys. Like everyone's like, oh my God, look who they signed. That guy will be gone, you know, right after the Denver practices. But you got to just check. You got to make sure. So that's kind of why they bring those guys in too. Yeah, I'm going to go down there, and I will give you a full report from those Thursday. And on Thursday, I'll be down there. On Thursday, I'll be down there. Don't know when I'm going to hang on Friday, but Thursday, I'll be down there, and I'll be there Saturday night as well. Yeah. So I'll be there Thursday and Saturday night. So I'll give you full reports from both of those places or both of those days. But Thursday, I'm stoked. Like Thursday, it's like that's the day. Because we generally know what's going on. And like I told you about the Chargers practices, which like Trey Lance was a deer in headlights. You know, it was looking great in camp, and then all of a sudden the Chargers thing happened. It's the same thing. You know, with all these young guys, especially on defense, all right, Upton Stout kind of knows what the offense is. Upton Stout knows the route concepts, route trees, all those kind of things that the Niners are running. All right, Denver's different, right? Okay, Cortland Sutton's coming at you. What if they throw Cortland Sutton, who's what, 6'4", 200? Let's see Cortland Sutton in the slot. All right, how are you going to handle that? You know, something like that. Something just different. Denver's going to throw different schemes, and that's what Kyle wants. And it's the same thing with Sean Payton. This is why these coaches love joint practices, because they can script them out, unlike a preseason game. Hey, Sean, we need you to do this, you do that. I want to test this guy specifically, different thing. It's different concepts. You don't know these players. You've been going against the same guy over and over and over, and Upton Stout and Ricky Pearsall, and they kind of know each other a little bit. All right, let's see Cortland Sutton. Let's see, Bo Nix. Let's see, like I said, Patrick Surtain. Hey, Ricky Pearsall. If I'm Kyle Shanahan, I want Ricky Pearsall against Patrick Surtain every single rep. Just Ricky come to the front of the line, Surtain's out there. Like he's one of the best corners in the league. He's probably the best corner, pure cover corner in the league right now. Like, Ricky, this is what you're going up against. And same thing like a Jordan Watkins, a rookie out of Ole Miss, who's looked nice. He's got that jab step, like I told you, gets off the line. Hey, this is the guy. This is the kind of guy you got to beat every week. I'm going to put Jordan Watkins against. Like, I want Surtain. He's probably not going to do that many reps, but that's what I want. Different guys. I don't know how I know Drake kind of got banged up a little bit. I don't know if he's going to be in the practices, but that's what I want to see. I want to see these guys, and then they're not going to play in the preseason game. Kyle already said that. So this is really, the preseason game, and everybody goes and they're all hyped up, and it's Broncos Niners, and then it's Carter Bradley playing quarterback for the Niners in the second quarter, and everyone's like, oh man, better go get a beer. I don't even know any of these guys. The game is Thursday. The Broncos Niners game is Thursday. It's not Saturday night. That's they're gonna that's the hype, and that's the uniforms, and that's everything else. They're not playing anybody. Kyle said today, well, we got 22 spaces. We can't not have everybody, but it's more the offensive linemen, because they need to get into shape. They need to hit. They need to get into game shape. Defensive linemen need to get into game shape. I'd like to, if I'm them, I want to play D Winters a lot. I want to play young guys. They're going to play a lot of young guys, especially defensively. They're going to, you're going to see that. Brock's not playing. Kittle's not playing. Trent Williams is not playing. Fred Warner's not playing. Who else? You might see a Dominic Pooney, but you're not watching the offensive lineman. McKivitz isn't playing. Like, it's just, they're not going to play a lot. Bosa's not playing. So what we're going to see on Thursday, that's the game. Even though Saturdays, they're going to make money. People are going to buy uniforms. We're going to go. You're going to pay you're still paying, what is it, $20 a beer? You're still paying $20 a beer. Anyway, that's what's going on. Any more questions, comments, thoughts, everything? Nothing is off limits. Let's see. Anything else on the... Let's see. Papa J says, do you think if we weren't going through so many injuries, Greg Joseph would still be here to battle it out with Moody? Yeah, Kyle said as much today. Kyle said that it just came down to a numbers game with Greg Joseph. But the thing is, even though you saw the numbers with Greg Joseph, who was 22 of 24, and Moody, I think it was 21 of 24. And there were, again, it was something like 35. It was like 35, 40, 45, 55. And Joseph was making the kicks, but Moody looks more majestic when he's making them. And like I said, look, if he's a free agent or a seventh rounder, Moody's probably already gone. Kyle was frustrated with him a lot. And he's not going to say negative things about him, but he's frustrated with him. If he's a free agent, seventh rounder, he's gone. He was a third rounder. Or to be technical, between the third and fourth round, he was a sandwich pick. He's a third rounder. You put a third round grade on this guy, and you don't have to cut him, and he has physical skills that are superior to Greg Joseph. But like I said, the mental thing scares the hell out of me. But yeah, to answer your question, Kyle did say that today, that if it wasn't a numbers game and they didn't have 13 guys out of practice, that he'd probably still be here. So that's that. Anything else? Questions, comments, thoughts? And again, you can put a super up to 100% get your question on the board. Let's see here. What else? Anything else today? By the way, if you got any questions, comments, thoughts, or anybody that or anything you'd like me to focus on, because at this point at camp, like I said, I'm going to go down there and look at receivers because I want to see who's going to step up in the absence of possibly Jennings, in the absence of Aiyuk. Because I've been watching the receivers a ton. And that's, Pearsall, that's obvious. Brock's been great in camp. I don't even have to watch Kittle or Bosa or Warner or any of those guys. And then I'm obsessed with the young defensive lineman. That's essentially what I'm doing. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the corner opposite Demo without Renardo Green. I'm going to look at that a lot, like I said, in the practices, but I'll get into it later in the week as far as the practices, that's a great question. That is a great question. I think Frank should be in. I mean, what's Frank, the third leading rusher of all time? I mean, people are like, oh, he played so long, and I don't care. I don't care, man. Like, he's a top 3 rusher of all time, right? Isn't Frank Gore third? I'm doing that off the top of my head, but isn't Frank Gore third? Let me just double check before I, because I'm the bastion of accuracy. All-time leading rushers. I mean, if you're third in rushing, it's automatic. I mean, I saw the list. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a couple of guys that are just automatic. But, I mean, if you're third all-time leading rusher, you can't keep him out. Yeah, he's third. Emmitt Smith, 18,355. Walter Payton, 16,726. Frank Gore, 16,000. I don't care, man. Played 5 teams, 2005 to 2020. Longevity has something to do with it. He's the third leading rusher of all time. More than Barry, more than Adrian Peterson, more than Curtis Martin, more than LaDainian Tomlinson, more than Betts, more than Dickerson, more than Dorsett, more than Jim Brown, more than Marshall Faulk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just mentioned all those guys. They're all in. Sanders in, Peterson will be in, Curtis Martin in, Tomlinson in, Bettis in, Dickerson in, Dorsett in, Brown in, Faulk in, James in, Allen in, Franco in, Thurman in. I mean, the leading 14 of the leading 16 all-time leading rushers are in the Hall of Fame, and the only 2 who aren't in the 14 of the top 16, Frank Gore, who's eligible this year, and Adrian Peterson, who I don't know if he's officially retired. He should, but he's had all sorts of money problems and all that kind of stuff. Didn't he just get in a fight at a bingo game or something like that? Or no, it was poker. But 14 of the top 16 are in the Hall of Fame, and the only 2 who aren't. Frank Gore is eligible this year. It's going to be these jackasses that are like, well, he's not a first ballot. Shut up. You either are or you're not. In every single sport, you're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. I don't want to hear about first timers and then unanimous and this and that. You either are or you're not. And yeah, Frank Gore's the third leading rusher of all time. He's a Hall of Fame player. I mean, it's not even close. He's a Hall of Fame player. So yeah, he's in 100%. And if they don't put him in, it's like, certain guys like T.O. they had a grudge against, because we do remember these are media members, and they might. I mean, there's going to be guys who don't vote for him, but it's stupid. Yeah, Fozzie, I agree with you 100%. He's first ballot, man. He's the third leading rusher of all time. I mean, and I don't care. I mean, people are going to, like I said, people are going to say, oh, he played so long or this, that, and that. I don't care. That's part of the process. Dude played forever. And really, up to his last couple of years, he was really effective. I mean, a couple of years, he may hung on a little too long, but generally speaking, I mean, he was effective in a lot of those years. So yeah, he's a first ballot. First ballot. Yeah, kick OJ out. Somebody just said OJ's in. Kick him out. Let's see. What else? That's a hell of a good question, Big Brick. How effective do you think BA will be when he finally is able to come back? My guess is he won't be back to full form until next season. Yeah, the only reason why, and I agree with you, Big Brick, the reason why that's going to be the case is because this isn't your normal ACL. He ripped up that knee really good, and so there's injuries beyond just a typical ACL. And there's speculation. There was speculation. I know Matt Miyoko was talking about it and stuff. A lot of people say, well, he's not ruled out of the first game. Well, he's not. Look, he's in meetings. They have a good relationship. Everything's going kumbaya. Everything's fine. It's not like last year, but I mean, there's no return date on the guy, and we are what's today? The third, fourth days of fourth. I mean, we're just over a month from the season starting. So, in fact, we're a month from today. No, not month from today. They play on Thursday. So I think it's a month from Thursday or whatever it is. Cowboys and Eagles. So, I mean, we're not that far away. And he's not even, there's not even a return table or a return date on him. Not even any speculation about it. Nobody's even asking the question anymore. So, as far as Brandon Ayuk is concerned, Ayuk is at least going to be, he's going to be on the PUP list and miss at least the first 4 games. And then as you kind of point out there, Big Brick, then, what's going to happen from there? I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a while. And that's why I'm looking at the receivers, and let's be realistic. Jauan Jennings is massive. He's de facto number 1. Ricky Pearsall these last few days, really stacking days. Huge, massive. Okay, he's your 2. And then, like I said, and I'm not just saying this, Demarcus Robinson, and you're going, that dude that was on the Chiefs and he was the Rams. That's the guy you're talking about? He's had a great camp. He catches the ball really easily, always open, good route runner, smart, gets to the open spot. He's been really good. And so if their offense, after Robinson does what he has to do with the DUI, if their 3 wide receivers, before Ayuk gets healthy, if their 3 wide receivers are Robinson, Pearsall, and Jennings, and then you add the element of, here's McCaffrey out of the backfield. You had, obviously, George Kittle. They're going to be fine. But, yeah, they got to get BA back. But I'm with you. I mean, I'm thinking 4 games at least, the PUP. Let's just be optimistic, shall we? Let's be optimistic tonight. All right, he gets back with it's just a PUP. So, okay, it's 4 games. I would say it's maybe the 10th game until he's really Brandon Ayuk, and then probably really Brandon Ayuk next year. I would agree with you there. It's not Achilles or anything like that, but it's a lot. And then remember, and I talk about this all the time, I know that he and Brock Purdy have been on the same page and everything, but every year is different. So Brock's throwing with all these different receivers, and then it's okay, we got to get back on the same page. We got to have that telepathic connection that we used to have. It doesn't happen overnight. So it's not only what Brandon Ayuk's doing, then it's okay, now you got to get back on, and now we got to get on the same page too, and I got to get the confidence because I've been throwing to Pearsall and Robinson and Jennings and all that for, camp into probably the first 4, if not more, games of the year. And then the more time he misses, obviously, the more it's, we're going to push it back. I mean, it could be 4 I think at the most optimistic. I think it's more probably realistic 6 or 8, but we'll see. Because there is literally no timetable on them. And like I said, we ask all the time as a media about a ton of things just because we don't know, we don't know what the answer is going to be. All of a sudden it's hey, anything on Ayuk? I mean, we have to ask. And all of a sudden Kyle one time is going to go, oh, by the way, Ayuk's got a timetable to return. And unless we ask, it's not going to happen. Who knows? Pine says he'll be fine. He's been running routes in the backfields. We'll be back in 5 and everything will be fine. Yeah, look, he's still young enough, but it's just there's a process to it. It's getting back into it. I mean, it's let's say, like I said, if we're optimistic and say 4 games, it'll take him 4 to it'll take him another month after that to really be close to himself. Because, like I said, this wasn't just your typical ACL, so it's going to take a minute. Yeah, that was really cool. That started with Mike Francesa, who said there was a caller on his show, and you probably know this story, but on WFAN in New York, and he was just giving him shit, and he goes, do the baseball giants and football giants ever get together? And Francesa went off on him. And then so it was Eli Manning and who was with him? Oh, Sean O'Hara, their center. And then it was Matt Chapman and Logan Webb. And they met in New York. It was pretty funny. It was actually really funny. So yeah, there was that. Anything else? Any questions, comments, thoughts? Good evening, Scott. It is good to see you, my friend. Very nice to see you. Again, just to recap the chalkboard tonight, episode 211 camp review for the weekend and Monday. Jennings injury cover-up. Kyle Shanahan said, no, Richard Sherman, it is not. Jake Moody wins the job, ? Kyle is still putting the pressure on him, but Greg Joseph, because of all the injuries in camp, has been released. It is Moody's job unless he falls right on his face and they have to bring someone in. But if Moody is as consistent as he's been in camp, he'll be the kicker. Rookie D lineman at the mic. If you missed it, go back to the beginning of the show. I gave you all of them. I gave you 𝐬𝐫𝐫𝐞 Williams, who was good. I gave you Alfred Collins, who didn't like being in front of the media. And then 2 from CJ West. You will buy a CJ West jersey this year. You will buy a 99. He's got a hell of a personality. Stout compared to K1. I've been telling you that for weeks. And Daniel Bullocks, the DB coach, said that. Johnny Holland, the linebacker coach, said winner's his job to lose and thinks he's going to play 90% of the snaps this year. Everyone's getting excited about Ricky Pearsall. He's stacking days as I go down the chalkboard here. Stacking. He's been great the last couple of practices. Can he keep it up? And I want Patrick Surtain versus Ricky Pearsall the entire day. On Thursday, Demo and Jauan and Jordan James back. Out Juice and Guerrero for a couple of weeks. Still out Cowing, Green, Jauan. And just one more look at all those. Oh, that was the roster moves. All those injuries. Givens a long time. Guerrero and Samo a couple of weeks. Jennings, same story with the calf. Day-to-day, the Achilles stepped on by Juice. Isabella with an ankle. Gross Matos Raiders week. And I just told you about the guys who are back. So there you go. You are caught up on everything. All right. If I did not get to your questions, comments, or thoughts, all you got to do is put them right underneath here at John Lund Unleashed. Also, I got to fix that lighting. What's going on here? Yeah, that's better. Remember, I'm on X all the time. So at John Lund Radio on X, or watching on Instagram tonight, the Bay Area Sports Collective, LinkedIn, or Facebook. You can always check us out on any of those ways. And again, here's what we're going to do on the show. This point moving forward on John Lund Unleashed, what we'll do is keep those alerts on John Lund Unleashed on YouTube, because we'll send out all sorts of sports news during the day, whether it be Giants, the latest on Jonathan Kuminga, all that kind of stuff. We'll send out tons of shorts, 49ers news, breaking news, all that stuff. We'll do it all day long. So on John Lund Unleashed, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and you'll get those alerts, camp updates, all those kind of things. And then 7 Pacific, we'll do a camp update and that kind of stuff, or daily recap on sports, but with a specific tone towards the 49ers at 7 o'clock each night. I think I've played everything for you tonight. I think we are all caught up on everything. If you missed anything, you can either go back to the start, or I will post the chapters. And so all you got to do is just click on everything and you'll know, and you can just go directly to that. So, all right, everybody have a great night tonight. Make sure before you get out of here, please give us a like. That would be great. The algorithm loves the likes. So make sure you hit the like so that we can grow the community. Make sure you hit us. If you came over from one of the other platforms, please subscribe to the channel, get those alerts on, and hit all those likes. All right. Monday night, we got through it. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com.
Goodbye!